Hello, my name is Miranda Creswell, and today I thought I would talk to you about just drawing one thing, drawing one flower, and seeing what that's like. So the flower that I thought I'd do today is a red tulip. It's the most beautiful red, and how to bring that on a piece of paper. It's a really hard thing, and it doesn't really matter in a way because you just by trying you're just looking at it and thinking about how beautiful that red tulip is. In October, my friend Anna, who I share an allotment with, and I decided to plant a lot of tulips all in a row in our allotments. And it seemed a bit of a kind of flamboyant thing to do because, there was so many of them, and we've got a whole lot that are red, and then we've got some pink ones. And now I'm just so pleased we have, because we can pick them and give them to people, and it's a kind of thing of beauty around these troubled times. And I brought my sketchbook down to the allotment and decided to do a very small sketch of the red tulip that I thought I might want to paint later. It really, in order to just kind of get to know it, just to get to know it in your head, kind of a memory thing, because they're very complicated, these flowers. And the more you kind of do little drawings, the more it's almost like a memory of a song or something like that. You get to know it a little bit, and then I'll bring it back to my own garden, or just outside my studio, because there I can spend a bit more time really concentrating in the shade there, and maybe with a cup of tea. Always good. When you do a drawing, quite often you start off, and it's quite simple. You're starting off with just the pencil, or when I do a drawing I use colour, so I start off with the pencil a little bit. Then I bring in another colour, and then I bring in another petal, and then it all gets quite complicated, and then you have quite fun because you're kind of putting on all these colours and layers, and your mind drifts away, and you're really thinking about the beauty of that petal. And then you realise that in a way it's become a bit heavy. It hasn't quite got that lovely delicacy that the flower has. And so today, for instance, I just rubbed a whole lot of it out, and you might think that's a bit rash, but in a way you never really lose by doing that. You can rub it out and put more back on, and quite often there's a mark underneath of your previous drawing, and that might help in a way. Anyway, you always learn from doing that. So I use the rubber not so much as a kind of corrective tool, but just as a way of smoothing things and putting another layer on. So it's quite handy like that. So the red tulip is such an amazing flower because it is so very red. How do you do that on a piece of paper? It's interesting. So in a way, you just try not to think about it too much, but put a whole lot of red colours so that you have access to them, and start to look and work out where the reds are redder and where they're slightly less, kind of slightly lighter. And everything seems to be concentrated into the middle of the flower. It's incredible. It really is giving a message to all those insects, and it's saying, come in here. And yet the petals are really beautiful. And when you start looking at a flower like this, you realise that it's really not very simple, and also just by being outside, everything is moving all the time, so nothing is still. So how do you capture that? It's a bit like trying to draw an insect buzzing about. So what you do is you just put some lines down, and don't worry about it being absolutely like every little crease is right. You just have to go with the flow and just think about the way that the petals are moving around and the delicacy of them. So you kind of think about the texture, and you don't really worry about if you've got the right shape. And then by not worrying about it, you probably will get the right shape. It's kind of weird how that happens. So I carry on and I'm adding strange colours to the petals, like blue and green. But the reason for that is that sometimes by putting those colours down first and then red on top, it makes the red redder in some weird way. So do experiment, because you never know. And the other thing is to put different colours next door to the red to make it look redder. And then you just keep drawing, and occasionally you start hearing birdsong, and then you drift back into your drawing, and then eventually you'll get to the end, or you think you've got to the end. And there might have been a time when your drawing was probably better than it was towards the end, but that doesn't really matter, because ultimately a drawing or painting is something that it's like a piece of paper with colours on it that reminds you of that peaceful time that you had in the garden. And the beauty of it is you can bring it into by your bed, you can bring it to somewhere that you indoors, and it will still remind you of the garden. Sometimes more than anything, it reminds you of the garden.